Cool.
Okay, so welcome everyone to the second episode of Creators Arena, brought to you by Creators of Product Community. Join us on Slack if you still haven't. Today we have with us Prashant Mahajan. Prashant has worked as a product manager in multiple large-scale startups like Paytm, Tokopedia, and Branch. All three of them need no introduction. They are very popular large-scale consumer companies. Prashant has experience of working on different products such as mobile apps, websites, growth products, data science products, payments, etc. And during his experience, he has had a chance to work with very large scale products touching millions of users. Prashant has also been an advisor to many startups in multiple domains. In today's session, we are going to be talking, as you can see, user versus data. Now, building products can be very difficult, and one of the biggest dilemma creators have is to figure out when to listen to users and when to look at data, how to find that right balance. So in today's session, Prashant will share his views on the same. Thank you very much, Prashant, for taking out time to do this. Over to you.
Cool. Thanks for your introduction. Uh, so, as team introduced me, I'm Prashant. I will be talking today about user versus data. So, user versus data is a very big question which is asked. What should I listen to? If I have to build a cool product, if I have to improve a product, if I have to prioritize a product, or even make the roadmap, there is a user asking XYZ feature, but the data is telling me to build ABC feature. Then which one should I look at? And this has been quite an interesting thing which I have observed through my career, and I'll be sharing some insights and some opinions on that. And later on, we'll do a discussion on same. I'll be talking more about problem, what I define approaches, and what I think we should do as a product manager. So just to start with, I'm Prashant. I started my career as a product manager at Paytm. I launched Paytm QR code along with all the payment features uh, from 2015 to 2017. And most of them are used by 100 million plus customers right now. And I was involved from scratch. So I know the struggles which happened in launching those products. I then worked in Tokopedia, which is Indonesia's $8 billion startup. I was leading their growth and data products, where I launched recommendation products, marketing products, a lot of platform products like PWA, AMP, Referral Engine, Android Go platform. And then I went to Branch, which is in California, another unicorn company, where I was leading their core platform. So Branch and Power 7.5 million apps. A lot of them are names like Disney, Flipkart, Paytm, Tokopedia, Uber, Twitter, Amazon, uh, Shopback. A lot of big names use Branch, and I was part of their core platform, which was responsible to provide the service. So through this career, I have experienced Indian startup ecosystem, Southeast Asian startup ecosystem, and Silicon Valley startup ecosystem. And I have seen a lot of my myths being broken down, where I thought, oh, this is how things are to be done. But as I moved along, things are not as we planned to. So why are we doing this debate? As I mentioned, as a product manager, one of the key element which is part of our day-to-day life, which actually happens on a daily or hourly basis, is taking a decision. Taking decision, starting from stand up, starting from product ideation to even how you maintain your life, your career, everything is a decision. In terms of product, your decision starts from ideation. What are you going to build? Why are you going to build it? what other people have, what direction you want to take it in, who are going to be the customers for this product, what pain point you are going to solve with this product. When the product move into development, then what tech stack are you going to use, what design choices you are going to make, what platform you are going to choose, how does this rank as compared to other products in the pipeline. And when you ship out the product, then questions like maintaining the product, growing the product, or in certain cases, you have to kill the product, taking those decisions. How to improve the product is another decision. And should you add another feature? Also, how does this product rank in the pipeline? Let's say you have shipped out a big product like sign up. Let's take example of sign up. Now, adding a password show hide button. How does that feature rank as compared to other products which are to be developed? So improvements like that. So all these are decisions which you have to take on a daily basis if you are working in a high growth PM position. And it's not easy to take these decisions. These decisions need to be based on something. You need to justify your dev team, your design team, your executive leadership, sales team, that why you took a certain decision. And most of the time, this decision depends upon either the user or the data. What I mean is, you may reply to sales team that because Twitter is asking this feature, we are going to build it because it's Twitter, it's a high paying customer. Or you can say, no, we are not going to build this feature because the data shows that not 99% of our customers are not using this product. So we want to deprecate this feature. So you need to justify your thought, your decision based on something. Now that something in 99% of the scenarios is either user or the data. Now this is a looks fairly simple that, oh yeah, we look at user, we look at data, and it's done. But we have seen a lot of big companies, a lot of legends give different opinion on this particular aspect. Here are some quotes. Sam Walton from Walmart Group, he says that focus on the customer. I don't know why this line is coming. Focus on the something the customer wants and deliver it. Jack Ma, even Amazon has first leadership principle called customer obsession. So all these people focus a lot on customers. And then there are another list of people, Peter Drucker from Intel, he said that what gets measured gets managed. So should you look into data or should you look into user? That's a question on which no one has given a quote so far. So I went through Google search. There's no single quote from Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, or any other CEO, founder, where they compare both of these things. Now that becomes hard for upcoming PMs or people who are in confusion what to do. So I'll take one by one what is data-driven decisions and then what are user-driven decisions. We'll be discussing mostly the shortcomings of these approaches because benefits, there are a lot and there's no one benefit which is over and above the other. So what I have tried to do is talk where these approaches fail so that we understand what not to do, what should be careful about, and then we'll talk what we should do. So data-driven decisions started earlier in the software development when there used to be software which were shipped in DVDs and CDs, waterfall model was followed. Why it started? Because you capture data, that data is transferred to you, you look into that data, and then you decide. It was not that simple to observe user behavior on, let's say, you are shipping out a game like Road Rash. Road Rash was packed into a CD, shipped out. So you never get the user insights from that CD because it was an offline world. Internet penetration was still low. So you don't get enough data to observe the user, talk to user, do user research that you can take a decision based on that. So most of the decisions were taken based on sales, market, etc. Another reason for data driven is leadership focus. You must have seen when you are senior, when you're VP of engineering or VP of product or CEO, they don't ask user pain point. They ask us how many app installs are happening, how many user daily active users are there. So it's a top-down approach which a lot of people, a lot of good founders I have seen fall into this trap where they forget about the user and they start looking the business in terms of numbers. This is not wrong actually. Reason being, they don't have enough time to listen to each user story, each user pain point. So this becomes our role to manage data along with user. Now, again, with the fallen, there was a time when Lean Startup Book came out, people starting looking into user. But now with the advent of technology and internet, data tracking is gaining popularity again. Everyone wants to be an AI driven company. Everyone wants to capture enough data and do personalization and all. So that's why data driven decisions are again picking up. Now let's start talking about what are various pitfalls of going with data driven approach. Number one is causation versus correlation. It's a very common thing where we see data and decide, we interpret the data incorrect. For example, if you see the ice cream sales and shark attacks, they both follow same graph. Now one can, let's say if you are blinded by data, you can say as people start eating ice cream more, they get attacked by shark, or they got attacked by shark, so they started eating ice cream more. So this is a very common mistake people do, where they forget that ice cream sales increase as the summer season comes and people start going to beach as the summer season is there, and that's why they get attacked. So these two data, which appear to be correlated, are caused by third thing, which is not shown in the data. So this is a very big pitfall where a lot of people fall in, which need to be taken care of. Another one, when you're following the data, you lack empathy. What it means is people, you may have certain data, but that data might be good on paper, but if you talk to user, it might be painful. I'll give an example of current situation. Let's say I put a blog, coronavirus vaccine found. Now that will increase my CTR. That will increase my, if I have posted a video, my YouTube views, my daily active users, all those numbers. But eventually the customer will be disappointed. The user will come to website, they'll see that, oh, there's no vaccine or cure yet. And that will be a bad user experience. So data does not tell how the user actually feel about your product. they tell just the metrics. I use a lot of banking app. Doesn't mean I like to use them. It's just that I have to use them. There's no choice. Another big pitfall which we have I've seen over the time, and I have fallen for this is you search for uh, trends on chatbots or blockchain. You will see that, oh, this is going to be the next big thing. In X number of companies have started developing chatbots. The market is about to grow by 25%. So all these things give you a hope. I have quoted some Facebook Messenger because during 2016-17, that was a big hype that Facebook Messenger is going to be the next big thing. And we all know people have actually stopped using Messenger altogether. Facebook daily active users are falling, especially in India, and chatbots are not that prevalent yet, especially Facebook Messenger ones. It was expected that they are going to replace mobile apps, which did not happen. Same thing, 2017 blockchain hype. It gave hope. There were a lot of ICOs, and now we don't hear about them at all. So if you're going to look at data, it could be misleading. Again, to clarify the question which is being asked, when we talk about data, data could be both internal and external. Internal data includes the user data, which you are collecting, and external data consists of competitive analysis, market analysis, uh, there could be industry analysis. So there could be multiple data, both internal as well as external. Now, other small issues which can happen because of data are you need to do investment. You need to do investment in terms of time, energy, and money to set up a tracking tool. That need to happen before you ship out a product. So let's say if you shipped out a product without tracking tool, you may miss out a lot of uh, data points, which are important. Another thing is too many data sources. Now you can literally go to Google and find all sorts of data. You can track your heat map, you can track your user journey, events, backend data, market data. So there are n number of data points. And lastly, data will limit your innovation. If you look at people like Steve Jobs, Elon Musk, they don't look at data that, oh, there is no zero people on Mars, so we are not going to launch SpaceX. Or there are not enough people to uh, use touchscreen, we are not going to launch iPhone. So innovation need to happen when people go beyond the traditional data sets. I would like to point out few exceptions for this. Uh, these exceptions need to be taken care because people will might assume that I am asking them to ignore data completely. No, there are certain scenarios where incidents, where data makes the most sense and you can ignore everything else. That include incidents, system failures. If your back end or front end suddenly starts failing and data is showing something, you should ask question, which platform the data is coming from? What have we launched? What are the numbers affecting it? That is important. Another thing is when you are figuring out total addressable market, what is your TAM? You should figure out how much it will cost. How much will you sell it for? What is the customer willingness to pay? What is the total market size? These kind of questions you cannot guess from user. You need to look at data. And lastly, in certain industries, data is more important than user. Let's take example of payments. I want to have a frictionless payment, but I don't want to have fraud. So in order to keep the fraud low, you have to compromise on user experience at certain time. There could be legal regulations. Another scenario is biotech. In biotech, you don't see enough. You don't say that because this medicine doesn't taste good, I'm not gonna eat it. You have to see the data that eating this medicine cure this disease. Just a second. Now going to user-driven decision making. It started with the lean agile methodology, which became very famous during 2000s when internet became a big thing. It is now, I have seen mantra for all the designers, PMs and startup founders that, oh, we will focus on customer, we will do research, we will do this. And they just become too customer centric. Also because now you can track users in ways which you couldn't do earlier. So people have started, looking at customers in a lot of ways. I know a company which literally invested 6 months to do user research and then ship out a product which failed because they wanted to make a perfect user experience. And it's actually very, I'll talk more about B2B versus B2C. But giving an example here, when I was in Paytm, we, let's say Tokopedia. Tokopedia, we were looking at data a lot, daily active user, transactions, uh, payment gateway success rate, app installs, fraud checks. But when I went to B2B, you have customers like Uber, you have customers like Twitter, you have Amazon. Now, doesn't matter what uh, data is saying in certain scenario. If a customer who's paying you millions of dollars per year, you have to look at their need as compared to your own data hypothesis. So that's a heads up warning. Now, user driven also has pitfalls. This is a very famous quote which I have seen almost all the everywhere, where Henry Ford says, if we would have asked customers what they want, they would have said faster growth. This is a typical scenario where innovation gets limited because people look at, oh, the customer is asking for, let's say, a portable music player, but they don't look at why. They forget why a lot and they stop questioning because before iPod was launched, people were happy carrying uh, CDs and CD players, Walkmans. So you have to question the basics that no, this is not, uh, this could be challenged, this could be changed. What could be the better way? So that's how innovation comes in. And it's not customers' task to tell you what to build. It's your task to understand what they need. Once you know what they need, then you can build products which they will use. Another important thing is human bias. Human bias is very common when you are building a product. Uh, I have this one example from my career. So I was working with Airtel Payment Bank, and there was this chief security officer. Earlier, if you open the Airtel Payment Bank app, My Airtel app, you have to enter PIN code or you have to enter the fingerprint in order to do anything. That is currently with ICICI or HDFC. But the Indian law says, the RBI law, you cannot show any user information or do any transaction without taking a second factor of authentication. Now, I had a certain belief that, in order for good user experience, we should remove the fingerprint in beginning. And the security officer had certain other beliefs that for better security, we should take fingerprint or pin in beginning. Now it's a very big bias which people can have because of their past experiences, because of their knowledge, because of their, uh, let's say, perspective. So it could be different. The another thing which I have seen is, uh, if you focus too much on user, you become dependent on them. Now, one example is at branch, I had a roadmap. This is Q4 of 2019. So I made a roadmap. We started pushing it. It was September end. We were planning for Q4, which was going to start in October. And then suddenly there comes a deal which was from Twitter. They wanted GDPI solution. Otherwise, they will churn. Now, the deal size was very big, which I cannot disclose. Because we were so dependent on Twitter for brand name, for strategy, for monetary reasons, that it actually disrupted the whole roadmap just to accommodate that requirement. And there was not just branch. In case of Apple, Apple is planning to make their own chip uh, processors because they're dependent on Intel. And recently, Intel had a security issue because of which Apple products were basically vulnerable. So that's why a lot of companies are dependent on each other. And that happens mainly because you look at user. User could be customer. And in this case, customer could be your highest paying customer or any other scenario where they are making a requirement. Now, user driven also has pitfalls. Number one, it is expensive. It is expensive to go to market, or let's say if I'm working at Paytm, I'll have to cover market in Jammu Kashmir to Kanyakumari. They are different people. They have different culture. They have different language. So I have to see rural. I have to see urban population. I have to see different age group. So it becomes an expensive thing to do following up people. Secondly, it lacks support. Support meaning, as they say, if we are talking about opinions, your opinion versus my opinion, it becomes hippo rule, which is highest paid person in uh, office. So then the problem is you cannot support user-driven approach based on certain data. And obviously it causes delay because companies like Google actually spend more than 6 months to just look out for best material or color which they will use for their Google Home or Google Mini. Again, I would highlight certain exceptions which are there for user-driven approach also. Depending upon industry, you should look at how important it is. If you're into B2B, if you're into hospitality, luxury, mental health, then user-driven approach is by far the safest, most stable choice. Environment. If there are culture or social issues, forget your numbers, look at those issues. One example for that is I was working in Indonesia at Tokopedia. During Ramadan month, there are certain uh, things you are abstained from being a Muslim to look at or to do. And we being e-commerce, we had certain categories which were more, which had high click-through rate. And we were running ads for that. and we ended up into, Twitter game where we were uninstalled Tokopedia was trending. So look into culture aspects, not just data. And lastly, use case by use case. We are in COVID-19. We know how difficult it is. You should, let's say, giving up a subscription for a month extra or refunding flights or other bookings will be a good thing to do, a good human thing to do as compared to your finance or your other metrics getting affected. Now, so you would have noticed I did not say we should go with user driven or data driven. I'm not going to say intuition driven also, but I would like to talk about intuition here. Intuition is something you get with experience, experimentation, knowledge, your failures, your exposure to industry, your exposure to the other people who have done it, and you will be wrong a lot of time, and you are going to mistake, but you get better with it. It's just like people who play cricket a lot, they know how to, let's say, even without thinking, they are good fielders, let's say. So your product decision, according to me, should fit in intersection of data, user, and intuition. We are going to talk how you can do this, but this is the metric which I use. You look at the data, you look at the user, talk to them, but then you have your own intuition, gut feeling, your own homework based on which you decide what decision to be taken. I'm gonna tell few things which you can do to deep dive into this particular aspect of how to get into the what to build. Number one is first principle. First principle was made very famous by Elon Musk in a recent interview, where he mentioned that you should question every assumption because whatever we know is basically based on certain information which has been fed into our mind. We have been told that things are supposed to be in a certain way. But what if things are not supposed to be a certain way? You should start asking very basic principles like not the why of product. That is a separate question where you ask why you are building this product or why this problem exists. This is about once you identify that this problem exists, let's say in case of Uber, the problem is not that, which is very common, that people want to go from point A to point B. It should be why taxi? Why you need to have a taxi? Why do taxis exist? Why not any car in the world? Why do you have to pay? Could there be any other way of payment? When Uber was launched, cash or cards was the only method of payment. That was the first time they moved it to online. And in case of India, Paytm came up first time. So asking the fundamental questions or questioning the set status quo will help you get to a point. Now, second question is towards asking the right question. It's not just asking the questions. You should ask the right question, which are going to be impacting your product metric. For example, how much should you price it? When are people going to use this product? Which platform are people going to use this product? That will give you insight on uh, which platform you should invest in. For example, Paytm transactions, a lot of features on Paytm never existed on Paytm web. It always existed on Paytm mobile app. Why? Because we asked the question that why would someone do a payment offline? They're not going to come to a website and do the payment. They'll be using mobile phone. They're going to be in a commute. And this is very common if you see uh, this kind of questions designers do with the customer to get the insight, but they forget the other aspect from data, which is if you're asking a customer how much are they willing to pay, they may say 20 bucks, but your cost of making the product is 25. You cannot listen to customer in that sense. Lastly, not lastly, you should always read between the lines. What I mean by that is there are the first example which I gave you where ice cream increases as the shark bite increases. So you should look why this is happening, why this data points are related, or why the customer is asking this particular requirement. Zoom out and see the bigger picture. As a product manager, what I have seen, especially in large companies, is we are given a KPI, we are given an OKR, and people get too stressed out for to achieve that KPI, to achieve that OKR, that they forget the bigger picture. You are not working to achieve your KPI. You are not product manager to become, get a KPI right. If you are working with just for your KPI, you are in wrong domain. Shift out now. You are working to make a product for your customers, which is technically feasible and will solve a real problem. That is the bigger picture. For that, you might have to miss your KPI. You might have to change your KPI. You might have to go against your boss, but you have to do that. And there are a lot of things which impact this. I'll give you an example. A lot of people, when I was in Tokopedia, they look at metrics like conversion rate or daily active user or monthly active user, app install. Those are vanity metrics. You should not look at those metrics that how does it matter how many daily active users are coming to your app. What matters is if 100 customers are coming, are they able to find the product they want on your e-commerce site? Are you offering the best, lowest price? Are they able to do a successful transaction? Are they able to receive the product? These are the bigger pictures, bigger questions which you should be asking instead of just looking at your KPI. Another thing is use data to understand your user, basically which user behavior is driving metric. An example for this is at Tokopedia, we started collecting a lot of data points like who's using credit card, who's shipping addresses, let's say expensive location, what product they are looking are they looking at baby product or not? And based on that, we did user clustering, taking a lot of data points. After doing user clustering, we were given a chance to segregate the user into are they married, what could be their age, what could be their socioeconomic status. And lastly, define success. Success could mean different for different companies, products, different PMs also. What could mean a success, let's say, in terms of COVID-19, your definition of success could be happy customer. Outside this situation, it could be more transactions. So define your success metric and then take the decision. And this one is last, Thomas. This is be willing to change your mind. This is a very important and crucial thing, especially in PM. A lot of people take a decision and never come back. They think, oh, if they change the roadmap, this will disrupt, make engineering unhappy. This will disrupt my roadmap, or so on. But as you discover more information, you should change your mind. You should change your roadmap. You should change your product, PID, everything. If you COVID-19 is a very good example for this. No one expected this to happen. And because this happened, if you're not going back and changing your product, making it more empathetic, changing the timeline, you are doing something wrong. So be willing to change your mind. So be a data and user informed PM instead of either of it, and use your best knowledge and intuition to take a decision. Let's get to questions now.
Thank you so much, Prashant. Let's start with the questions. Chandranuj, you had the first question.
Yeah, that was not a question from my side, but yeah, that was just an.
Oh, no, okay. Manjunath Prasad, you have the question.
For asking the question.
Sorry, this is Manjunath. I think Prashant did catch up with the question in one of his slides. So the question was that, is it just the data which is internal to the product that's in consideration, which is the platform data or the user data? But outside the system, there are so many other data points that are available. So I think it was clear that when Prashant mentioned that, no, it's just not internal. It's also external. I mean, it reflected in some of the examples he took off late with this Tokopedia experience. So yeah, my question is answered. Thanks.
Vivek Menon had question, what suggestion would Prashant have to capture data for a product that is already mature and has way too many workflows? Interesting question. So I agree, when a product is, a lot of time when you join a company, it's not necessary that you will be given a product from scratch. You might be given a product which has already been in the working. It's already shared, has different use cases. In that scenario, number one thing would be, what is the most used feature of this product? There could be, I'll give an example from Instagram. Instagram was a, I don't know how many people know history. Instagram was a whiskey lover app. So basically, you can discover people who like whiskey in their vicinity. And they looked at data. It was not working very well. But one feature, which was capture image, was working great. And they focused on that feature most. So I'll say, when a big product is there, number one, define the features, see what metrics are available. If no metrics is available, implement bare minimum metrics. That's one. Don't try to reinvent the wheel. What I mean is, if you change that product a lot, existing people will be, the user experience will be changed. Giving example, Paytm QR code functionality or the user experience has not changed for last 3 years, 4 years rather. And it's the same reason, that because a lot of people are using it. So you try to build a wrapper around it instead of changing it. Vivek, you want to follow up on that?
No, I think that's quite clear. Thanks, Prashant.
Akriti asked, how did I approach the buyers? Now, that was a very tough buyers to solve, because the security officer was from ICICI Bank and it was Airtel. Both of the companies where you cannot change anything. So what we did was, number one, I personally called at least 400 people, recorded the conversation and what they had opinion on showing feature first or taking the pin first. Secondly, I took all the competitive apps, how they follow the IBI guidelines. Thirdly, we launched an experiment which we took control group. Control group is where you deploy the change to certain percentage of people. So we launched for internal Airtel employees, basically, and it says that was a huge number of people. So we had around 10,000 people, and we could collect that the conversion rate or the transaction rate increased when people were able to see when they open an app, let's say, oh, you can do payment instead of enter your PIN code. Because people could see what Airtel has to offer, they were using it. So after combining user research, competition, and the control group research, combined it into a PPT. Uh, I will not recommend it to you, but I bypassed the security officer. I kept him in the CC, but I shared it with the CIO of Airtel that this is the research I'm going ahead. Please give OK. I took the consent and then I deployed it to 100% people. Any follow-up question, Akriti?
No, so you mean to say that you went ahead with your approach basis the case study and the user study that you had done, right, on the market research and stuff?
I did not go ahead based on that. I shared it to the leadership.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
So my point being, how easily was that adopted? Because again, when you're talking about competitive markets and, security officers involved in legal complications, right? So what time did you really give in for the entire thing to stabilize and to prove that it really worked as a model to justify your basis?
See, it is, again, it's a personal question because for me, it was a ego clash basically because he was a 55-year-old very senior person and I was a very junior, not junior, but senior PM who was very young. So I was like, I wanted to prove him wrong, but not without any substance. So I went to IBI website, collected the whole legal uh, question, the legal law which is pertaining to this particular situation, broke it down. So I did it very fast because I was passionate about it, but it depends from person to person how much you are willing to invest. I literally was on call for on the entire weekend talking to 400 people. So how much you are passionate about, that's the question to solve this problem.
Okay.
There's a question, go on.
Yeah, no, that's it from my end. So I just wanted to understand what really happened and how did you approach it?
Yeah, I mean, I can share more insights on LinkedIn. We can connect or email. Rahul has asked a question. For an early stage startup, when we don't have much data to back up, but only business goal, how do we prioritize between multiple features? So this is actually very common where people are confused on what to build first. And in case of early stage startup, growth is important. Now, growth is important. It depends again about B2B versus B2C. And the growth can come from users, hypothesis, and as I mentioned, intuition. For example, I'm planning to launch a job portal right now. I can build job search in that. I can build for recruiter that. But considering the current situation, what I will do is make a functionality where people can upload a list of jobs they have and on the other side, I will upload list of candidates which were laid off, and then I'll match them up. So this question of when we don't have enough data to back up, how do we prioritize? Number one thing is user. Talk to your user who's going to pay for it. So because you need to generate money as an early stage startup. Second, what is your metric which you are focusing on? Like I mentioned, define your success metric as early as possible. Once you know that your success metric is new user, then build up a sign up page first, because that's important. So another sorry, I got confused. So another thing in an early stage startup is you, depending on if you're in B2B versus B2C, there are totally different approaches which you can go on. In case of B2B, you tie up with one customer, ask them what they want, build it out, but make sure that you are not committing too much on that. In terms of B2C, what is your success metric or what is your product vision? In terms of vision, you should start building out the features. Let's say your end goal for MVP is to have a product where people can post their video, then just uploading a video, like, comment, and user account. So what are your MVP, and then start building according to that.
I think we have time for one more question. Chandranus has a question asked.
Yeah. So various prioritization techniques. Actually, I gave a talk on prioritization earlier.
We should tell the question first for everybody to listen.
Yeah. So the question asked is, what are some of the prioritization techniques which I used at Paytm, Tokopedia, and Branch that covered data and or user? So one technique which honestly there's no silver bullet to it. This is going to be a case by case scenario where you will have to see your environment, and based on that environment you'll be taking decisions. But recently we started using intercom technique, which is RISE, which is based on reach, which means how many people will this particular product be used. Second is impact, which is how out of all the people who will be using this feature, how valuable this feature will be for them. Second was confidence, which third is confidence, which is defined as how confident we are based on our assumption, which we just mentioned, of reach and impact. Fourth is effort. How much time will it take for an engineering and design team to build it out? And lastly, which I added from my side, was value. Value could be the monetary value attached to that feature. For example, if I ship out a referral product at Branch, then how much dollars will company A willing to pay me, company B willing to pay me, and then sum it up. So based on this, you have a list of features. You put a score, you get a end score, and you can prioritize. I would like to point out two things here. Number one, there are certain things which could be not covered in this prioritization, but still important. That could be certain legal things, certain security tickets, certain tech debt which you have accumulated. And last thing, another aspect is bugs. When you are prioritizing a feature, a lot of people get confused with the bugs. So you should implement this prioritization technique to the bugs which I reported to, in order to have a complete picture and not just feature request.
Anyone has any other question? If not, then can we please have a round of applause for Prashant? Can we please unmute and just give him a round of applause? Thank you so much.
Thank you, Prashant.
Feel free to connect or LinkedIn email, and we'll take it from there. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much, Prashant. Thank you everyone for joining. Have a nice evening. Bye-bye.
Thank you all. Have a nice evening. Stay safe. Bye-bye.